Good morning, members of the press. This is the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, and we are here to provide an update on the AG case. We thank you so much for your patience. My name is Edward Woods III. I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. And joining me as they come off screen is our MICRC Chairperson, Cynthia Orton, and our MICRC local counsel, as you know, is retained by Fink Bresic. And here representing Fink Bresic with us today is Nathaniel Fink, and happy to have both of them on board. We want to address some of the aftermath of the AG case and then open it up for questions after we're done. And we'll start off with our MICRC commissioner, our chairperson, Cynthia Orton.
Thanks, Edward. So the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission expresses heartfelt gratitude and respect to Baker Hostetler and Fink Bresic for their outstanding professionalism and defense in the AG case. In addition, we appreciate the expert testimony provided by Bruce Adelson, Dr. Lisa Hanley, Dr. Max Palmer, and Dr. Jonathan Rodden. In fulfilling our mission to draw the maps with citizen input, we followed the 7 ranked redistricting criteria as listed in the Constitution, not the previous A-poll standards that placed a priority on county, municipal, and township boundaries, which is currently the 6th out of the 7 redistricting criteria. In 2018, Michigan voters by more than 61% took fate into their own hands and transferred redistricting criteria from the Michigan legislature to the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. As outlined in the Constitution, each commissioner met the criteria to serve on the commission. The criteria is to be registered and eligible to vote in the state of Michigan, and then not currently or in the past 6 years have been any of the following. And it lists 10 things, but I'll just list 3 as an example. You can see the rest in the Constitution. 1 is a declared candidate or partisan federal, state, or local official, an elected official to partisan federal, state, or local office, or an employee of the legislature. And like I said, there's 7 others that are similar. So once again, we thank Baker Hostetler and Fink Bresic for their stellar preparation and representation of the MICRC in court.
Thank you, Commissioner Orton. Members of the press, we have just a few things that we really wanted to reiterate. One of the things is with regards to the commission is that the commissioners were qualified, uniquely qualified, according to the Constitution, as our chairperson has shared, with regards to doing the redistricting process for congressional maps as relates to state house as well as state senate maps. So the criteria as outlined by the Constitution and voted by Michiganders was very clear as in terms of what was needed to serve. And each one of the commissioners, as verified by the Michigan Department of State, met those qualifications and served. We've noticed that there's a lot of things that are going on. And as Commissioner Orton, our chairperson, has shared, we want to thank the outstanding job of our legal team, as well as our expert witnesses, because we believe that this is something that will be won in the court of law, not in the court of public opinion. And what we have noticed is a lot of press comments and things said in the press, and one-liners and tags and teasers and things along those lines. But as a commission, we know our responsibility is to making sure that we follow the 7 ranked redistricting criteria as outlined in the Constitution. You know, we have stressed that on numerous occasions and want to reiterate that today because there continues to be a misconception with regards to the A-poll standards. We are not doing things previously. So to do an apples to oranges compare or apples to apples comparison in terms of how redistricting was done this cycle versus the previous cycle is just factually incorrect because there were 2 distinct criterias that were being used. And we want to make sure that we share that with the public, that once again, there are 2 distinct criterias. The commission was very clear that a community of interest was not shaped by county, municipal, boundaries, but were shaped by those who identified the communities of interest based on historical, as outlined in the Constitution, economic interests, as outlined in the Constitution, and cultural characteristics. And so a lot of those had to do with neighborhoods. If the commission spent a lot of time trying to understand the different neighborhoods, especially as related to some of our larger cities here in Michigan. The legal team did a great job of talking about the Voting Rights Act, so we're going to let that speak for itself in terms of the court and what was shared there. But the other thing that the commission is also concerned about and important about is democracy. You know, this ballot proposal was not initiated by the commissioners. We know that there's a misconception out there that the commission did the ballot proposal, the commission got the state of Michigan to vote on it, and that's just simply not true. That was done, as you know, by voters, not politicians, who gathered the signatures, wrote the proposal of 2018-02, and I would encourage you with regards to that to ask them about it. You know, the story is well documented. You know, they did slay the dragon, not the commission. They did slay the dragon, not the commission, in terms of the documentary that was a momentum to get more than 61% of Michigan voters, I repeat, more than 61% of Michigan voters to change from the legislative process to do redistricting to a citizen-led process. Once again, that was the vote of the people. And that's one great thing about democracy as we talk about that. The other good thing about democracy is that, you know, they didn't want to see a lot of the infighting and some of the things that were going on with the previous redistricting cycle. And they felt citizens could come together in a common sense manner to draw fair maps with citizen input, utilizing those 7 redistricting criteria. As many of you know, the commission is reviewing its code of conduct, but the code of conduct is not just for the commission. It's also an expectation that we have for staff, such as myself and previous staff, as well as our contractors and our vendors, including our attorneys. And we just want to applaud the civility of our attorneys in this process as a whole. And there's 2 things that we have, strong disagreement about. The first is the attorney of the plaintiffs was quoted as saying that our witnesses, our commission witnesses, perjured themselves or basically lied under oath in the courtroom. We immediately after, I repeat, immediately after the proceedings were over. And that's even despite the admonition from Judge Neff with regards to being civil and how we communicate and talk to one another. You know, we were very disappointed that the plaintiff's attorney would take an opportunity to use a press conference and demonize and basically say that our and basically not even basically actually say that commission witnesses lied in the court. I mean, we strongly deny that, vehemently deny it, and really expect a public apology for such an egregious action that took place immediately after the proceedings. The other thing we're concerned about is the ongoing threat to democracy. Before the commission was formed, we had groups, organizations that were trying to prevent from the commission and from happening, preventing democracy from taking place. While the commission was doing its work, we had this ongoing threat of democracy, trying to prevent democracy being taking place, trying to deny more than 61% of Michigan voters from having their say in how they wanted the redistricting process. And even as a result of this AG case, we see an ongoing threat to democracy. And we see this first from the Michigan Freedom Fund, and now we've seen it also from Fair Maps. And then there's now a Michigan Voting Rights Foundation. And you can look up all of these organizations in Laura. You can look them all up in Laura, and they have continuously tried to silence the voice of Michiganders in terms of having the democracy that they've elected to have for the people, by the people, as relates proposal 2018-02. And now we find out they're funding the plaintiffs as relates to this AG case and this trying to ensure that the commission, once again, the commission's responsibility of drawing fair maps with citizen inputs, utilizing the 7 rank redistricting criteria. And now we see that they're doing anything and everything they can to stop the voices, silence the voices of Michiganders by their ongoing litigation support and preventing the commission from doing its job, despite the will and the voice of the more than 61% of Michiganders. We wanted the press to be aware of this ongoing threat. We wanted the public to be aware of this ongoing threat. And as we double down and focus our efforts in winning this case, as we have won previous cases in the court of law, we will continue to do that to ensure that Michigan voices are heard, the process of democracy that Michiganders wanted by more than 61% takes place. And once again, thanking our attorneys and our experts for ensuring that the commission followed the 7 rank redistricting criteria in drawing fair maps with citizen input. At this time, if there's any questions, we can take them. Mr. Fink is here to speak. If Mr. Fink, you probably want to address the lies, because that really has a serious bearing on our case when we bring witnesses to tell facts, and then to have the plaintiff's attorney to call them liars in a public forum is greatly disconcerting.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Woods. I would just like to echo what Mr. Woods was speaking about related to the false accusations that were made by plaintiff's counsel immediately after the court instructed all counsel to remain civil throughout the remainder of this case. Literally within minutes of that statement from the court, plaintiff's counsel stepped outside the courtroom and held a press conference and falsely accused commission witnesses of lying under oath. I know that plaintiff's counsel regrets making that statement and wishes that he had not made that statement to the press, but it's out there. And I do think it would be appropriate for plaintiff's counsel to make it clear to the public that he regrets that statement. Beyond that, it's the intention of counsel for the commission to follow the court's instructions and remain civil. And we will be submitting our final brief in December and demonstrating to the court, like we believe that we did during trial, that the commission produced fair maps for the state of Michigan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fink. I want to welcome Beth LeBlanc, Detroit News, Lauren Gibbons, Bridge, Michigan, and Colin Jackson with Michigan Public Radio. And if you have any questions, we can take them at this time.
Hey, thanks, Edward. Thanks for holding this. How much were your expert witnesses paid to testify during that trial and to prepare the reports that they did?
Those invoices have not been received yet, but as soon as I get them, more than happy to share that with you.
So you don't know how much they're going to charge you for basically a week's worth of work?
Well, it depends on the hours they report, Beth. And like I said, I haven't seen the invoice. The invoices for November are due December 10.
Okay. I know you guys, it sounds like you're pretty upset about those comments from plaintiff's counsel. It seems like there are some measures that the redistricting commission can take if they are upset about comments made by the plaintiff's lawyers, such as requesting sanctions or going to the judge and, even arguing contempt of court if they gave directives during the court hearing regarding that. Instead, you're coming to the media and I guess demanding a public apology through them. What's the thought process there?
Well, usually, Beth, when someone makes an accusation like that, the media tries to get a response from the commission. And when that article was published, no one contacted us. No one asked us for a response. We gave it some time. Unfortunately, we had an issue last week that caused us to postpone the conference. But usually the media is concerned about making sure that they get both sides of the story And in this particular case, that did not happen. And so now we are having this press conference to address that and the other issues that we raised today. Any other follow-up, Beth, on that?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Lauren or Colin?
Yeah, I have a question for Nate. I just wanted to get a sense of the timeline and if you had any idea at this point when we should be expecting anything from the court as in regards to the aftermath of the trial.
Sure. So the final written submissions from both sides are due December 4th. It's called Proposed Findings of Fact and Conclusions of Law, and a brief that goes with it. So there'll be a lot of essentially briefing that both sides will provide to the court. And we haven't received any sort of specific timeline from the court in terms of when they intend to turn around their opinion. So it would be pure speculation. I've been practicing law long enough to know that I can never predict when a court is going to issue a ruling. But I do know that the parties will be submitting our final briefs on December 4th.
Lauren, any follow-up?
No, I think that's good. I just wanted to touch base and check in.
Great, thank you. Colin?
Yeah, thanks. This is a question for Nate as well. And this is kind of, I guess, more of a simple question, but what types of information would be included in those final briefs, and how would it compare to the arguments made in court over the course of that week trial?
That's a good question. And not a simple one, frankly. So as I mentioned, there's proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law, which is something that that litigators, it's very common to understand what that means, but non-lawyers generally don't. Both sides will be submitting what we believe are our proposed findings of fact, the determinations that on any factual questions, what we believe they should be, and also conclusions of law. So any legal questions where you're interpreting case law, statutes, constitutional law, whatever it might be, we will present our proposed findings on those positions as well. We'll submit that to the court, and then we'll submit a brief that supports our position on those issues. And the plaintiff's counsel will do the same thing. And but to sort of get back to your question in terms of what this looks like, it will largely, I anticipate that a lot of it will look like a lot of what you probably heard in court during trial, but in written form. I don't want to quite say a summation because it's going to be very comprehensive, and it's going to include all of the citations to the record, both the exhibits and the testimony and all of the relevant documents and case law and the like. Will, like I said, we believe from the commission's perspective, present a very clear, concise argument as to why the maps that the commission produced were fair maps and legal maps for the state of Michigan.
Colin, any follow-up?
Thank you. And I guess just one other question. This is possibly another bigger one, but what happens if the commission does have to go back to the drawing board? How do those logistics work?
Well, we'll have to hear what the court says, and we'll follow it, basically according to the Constitution. But right now we're optimistic that we will win this case because of the fine work of our attorney, our expert witnesses, and sharing the mapping process in terms of how the commission followed the 7 ranked redistricting criteria and how they drew fair math for citizen input. But if that happens, we'll cross that bridge when it happens, according to the Constitution, and follow suit. But once again, we are optimistic and grateful to our legal team for the outstanding job that they did in defending us in our mapping process.
Thanks, Edward.
Once again, just want to understand and please investigate and look at the threats to democracy, the ongoing threats prior to the commission started and how it's continuing through the Freedom Fund through Fair Maps and the Michigan Voting Rights Foundation. And once again, just want to remind the press that if accusations are made in public and recorded in public at the press conference, to please, or at a press conference, to please give the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission a chance to respond. This has happened in the past, and we just want to make sure we have a fair and equal chance to respond when these accusations are made. We want to thank each and every one of you for coming. And if there's any follow-up or things you might think of later, feel free to give me a call. And once again, want to thank our chairperson, Cynthia Orton. And once again, want to thank our local counsel, Mr. Nate Fink, for being with us this morning.
Hey, Edward, can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Sure.
Just to clarify, are you saying that the litigation that you guys just went through trial over is a threat to democracy?
No, we're saying the Michigan Freedom Fund. We're saying the Fair Maps, and we're saying the Michigan Voting Rights Foundation continue to be a threat to democracy.
How so?
They've been preventing the commission from being. They didn't want the ballot proposal to go through. They didn't want the commission to be formed. They didn't want. They keep wanting APOL standards to previous standards versus the 7 rank redistricting criteria. Just because someone has an opposing view doesn't mean that they're a threat, but they're an ongoing threat to dismantle what voters wanted. And that's what we're seeing over and over and over again. It's not simply having a difference of opinion. It's trying to dismantle the voices of Michiganders that continues to take place through these different organizations who have the same principal leaders in each of those organizations to dismantle what people have wanted. And once again, that's citizens, not politicians, to do the mapping process.
What are the current threats? I guess what are the current efforts they're partaking in that you see as looking as trying to dismantle this process?
Well, I mean, basically, we're funding a case that really has nothing to do with what they're how can I say, partisan gerrymandering. I mean, that's not the principle of the case. They're funding a case where they're trying to find any and all ways to force the commission to redo maps to match their partisan leanings. We see those as a threat. And we see other people who have maybe decided to collaborate or join with them in that process because, I got to give them credit. They're like the Energizer Bunny. They keep on coming as a result to that. But that's what we see as a threat. I mean, the issue from our standpoint is it's not about the will of the people. It's how we can get our way. And to me, that's a threat.
So I think you mentioned again, the litigation is the threat, but a 3-judge panel allowed it to proceed to trial because they saw there was enough there to at least argue it in a trial. I guess I don't understand that.
Well, the 3-judge panel is different. What I'm saying, and this is the suggestion, the funding behind it, the organization. We're not saying the process. We're not saying the case. Let me be very, very clear. We're saying these organizations have continued to silence or attempt to silence the voices of Michiganders by participating or joining in to things that are preventing the will of the people. The AG case is not a threat to democracy. Let me be very clear. I'm not saying that. I'm saying these 3 organizations, listen to me very clearly, the Freedom Fund, the Fair Maps, and the Michigan Voting Rights Foundation are a threat to democracy, independent of the AG case. Having said that, I'm also sharing with you that they continue to fund or do anything that can prevent the will of the people by more than 61% of Michiganders who voted for this process. And that's our reality. All right, hearing nothing else, I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank you all for listening. And if you have any follow-up or clarity questions, please feel free to give me a call. But we want to make sure that the public hears us in an accurate and transparent manner as to what we see as the threat as relates to those 3 organizations. And our concern as relates to the AG case is the plaintiff, this is our concern there, accusation of commission witnesses, and not having the opportunity to respond to it is our concern with the press, but also the admonition given to the judge in terms of civility happening, how can I say, being dismissed minutes, as Mr. Fink shared, after the counsel was given by Judge Neff. Commissioner Orton or Mr. Fink, is there anything else left to say or clarify? I want to make sure we're not missing anything.
No,
Thank
just
you.
to end on a positive note. Again, we just thank our counsel for representing the MICRC well in court, and we will wait to see what the court says.
And further that positive note, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, Beth, Lauren, and Colin, and those who may be listening later. Take care. Blessings.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.